Stevie, the season is underway for the academy. The season is about to get underway for the women's team. How have preparations been going across the summer? Because I know it has been a busy one.
Yeah, it's been a changing summer. We've obviously went from having sort of an academy where it was the 2-year scholar at under 18s, moving beyond that. The players that stayed in the system at Oxford United had to be in and around the first team. We didn't have that reserve team under 21, so it was a few players who took that next step on, and they had to have something really quite magical at 18 years old for us to be able to keep them in the system. With that change now, having an under 21 sort of officially with a small games programme and then an unofficial one, another small one, we're able to give players now a longer period of time. So instead of having to come in as a Cat 3 academy and be like, right, you've got 2 years to basically impress to get to championship level across technical, tactical, physical and game understanding, that's very, very difficult. But now we've extended that this year to say, right, actually we're looking at a 4-year academy programme that you're in full time. It just gives the players a lot longer and a better opportunity now to be able to get up to speed of what might be expected of them.
So tell us then the timeline for these changes. At what point do you start discussing on them? And then from your perspective as well, how do you lead on the changes coming into force?
So I think we probably have to go back a good couple of years, because it's been that long that we've been making discussions about Category 2. So what is the difference? So essentially what Category 3 is in an academy against a Category 2 is to do with training facilities, it's to do with your games programme, it's to do with whether you have to have an official under 21s that play in the PL2, and all these different things add up into what is the difference in Cat 1, 2, 3 and 4. So your top clubs being Arsenal's and Man City's, and the other Cat 1s, they're up there. And then your Cat 2s are quite a lot of the Championship clubs, a couple of Premier League, couple of sort of other League 1, 2, and we sit as a Cat 3 trying to push up. And we've got a lot of change has to be made around here. So if you go back 2 years, what this training ground wasn't quite fit for Category 2. But we went through an audit, we went through a full audit last year, which then gives us what we need to do for changing categorisation. So once we've been through that process, which we now have, we have everything that we have to have in order to be a Category 2 academy. So throughout the back end of last year, we had to make a few changes. We had to then change some facilities, we had to change some management stuff, some administrative stuff, and the big one is the facility. So having made the changes now that needed to be put in place, we are now basically across 85%, 90% a Cat 2. We've got the staffing levels, we've got the admin, the leadership, all the other bits that add up, but we don't have an artificial 3G, 4G pitch with floodlights on the main training ground. That is a significant investment needed by the club that we're just not there yet. Like that's absolutely fine, but having went through that audit that we had planned on 2 years ago to having that last year, we're now looking and going, right, well, if we want to go to Category 2, we need to have a 21s in place. So this year we're starting to put that 21s in place, and hopefully by next summer we'll have a full academy across the whole thing, that we're going, right, we're literally now just that last little step away from moving.
Yeah, you see a lot of clubs taking different approaches to the academies. So why is this important to us that we try and make that step forward into Category 2? What is the overall ambition?
Getting it closer to the intensity of the games on a regular basis. So if we look at some of the games we're playing in just now, our metrics, our output for players isn't getting anywhere near what it should be to be a championship player. So our games programme right now, if we're to say, right, our under 18s programme and the championship senior programme physically just is so different. We go into Category 2, that intensifies because you're playing against more similar clubs to ourselves and more clubs that have been at a good level in producing high quality players. So that then gives you that up and closer to what senior football's like in the intensity side in under 18s football. It's also about protecting ourselves and protecting our players. So a big change in since Brexit is the changing of registrations for young players through academies. So if you come and register with Oxford United, then there has to be a registration fee if, say, somebody goes to Manchester United or wherever if the registration changes hands. That then, if you're category 3, you're sort of kind of capped at what you can get back for a player. There is a negotiation in it, but there is levels to it. If you go to category 2, you give yourself a level of protection on top of that, where the registration and the training fee becomes a lot higher as well. So there's sort of 3 or 4 different reasons for wanting to get to that next level up. It also means that when we go to play games at the weekends, it's not potentially in a school or at a sort of 3G pitch or somewhere sort of, and it's maybe different sites for 16s and 18s. It means that at category 2, it must be based at the training ground, the main training ground for that club, which gives it a bit more professionalism, ups the standards. All these little bits just help you towards getting to the sort of overall aim.
Yeah, and if we look at this season then, we've got the introduction of the Under-21s League as well. Just how much of a difference do you think that's going to make for the boys in the short term and the long term?
Massive, genuinely massive. If we look at the group of players that were in the unofficial 21s group last year, their games programme was fairly poor. They were out on loan, wasn't the right loan at times, it was very bitty. Whereas we can now control that group, so we've put more players into the group, and we've also looked at, because we've now upped the staffing levels, we've now got specific staff for that age group that looks after those players, and it also extends your academy time as well. So boys who come in at 16 are maybe going, I've got to impress, basically it's not even 2 years, it's within 18 months. Now you've got sort of 3 years, maybe even a touch more than that, to get into the rhythm of professional football. But when the players are then in that under-21s, it's very close to what the first team's like now. You're getting nearly as much as what a first team player would get, and it just professionalises the boys as well a little bit more. So it's a huge step. It gives the boys another few years on it, but it also just gives them the games programme again to build that intensity that they need to get closer to the first team.
I'm sure supporters will have more of an intensified interest in under-21s, knowing there's that closer bridge to the first team. So just to explain a little bit more about the schedule and maybe how people can keep across it if games are going to be here at the training ground.
Yeah, but I mean, I had a really good conversation with the manager just last week about making sure that our home games are based here at the training ground, early in the week, so that first team players who maybe need some minutes can get the game time, but also so that all the first team staff can get out and watch. I think that's really important, and I think it's a really important step that when you don't have a 21s and the under-18s playing a Saturday morning, it's near on impossible for the first team staff who have a game at 3 o'clock kick-off on a Saturday to get along to the games. And so, you look at the last week when we had Will Vokes, we had Hida playing there that are senior players, Gatlin Odonka, who, he's came through the academy, but he's now a senior player in there. That gives our boys that pressure to have to go and perform because they've got senior players there, but they've also got then the first team staff. They've got the gaffer standing there watching them. The pressure to be able to then go and deliver there, and then it gets people talking about it. So that's absolutely brilliant for the boys to get that. And for people that want to follow it, I'll plug your app. We'll get the fixtures on the app, on the website. Make sure that everybody's got an understanding. The games more often than not will be here at the training ground, probably 1-2 o'clock kickoffs. If people want to wander in and have a look, that's absolutely fine. There's no problem with that, unless we communicate on either the socials, academy socials, that it's maybe behind closed door for a reason. We've got one against Billericay actually, a Friday night coming up soon, so we'll get some stuff out in that. It'll be Oxford City, and give them the stadium experience as well. So yeah, look, we're looking for this 21s programme to be all singing, all dancing for the boys, and we'll get a few things wrong here and there, but mostly there'll be lots of positives.
Yeah, make sure you follow all the Oxford United Academy accounts, because there'll be all the updates there. Also, in terms of changes this summer, The women's team games kick off this Sunday. They travel to Cardiff, and they've had a number of changes which we've spoken to Sam and Gemma about getting closer to that professional model, which is all very exciting there as well.
Again, yeah, probably a couple of years if you want to go to the start of the journey. It was when Liam Gilbert moved on, been at the club for a long time, and we were under the part-time model. And that was when I stepped into it a little bit more and sort of grew with the team, with what the women's football was doing. And when I took on the current role with football development and the women's team came under my umbrella last summer, it was a big push to really look at what needs to happen here. You see the climate changing across women's game, WSL 1-2 now, and what's going to be happening there is there's going to be a lot of changes, I think, on the horizon over the next few years, and we want to be in and amongst it. And to do that, you need to start moving the women's team forward, and that's what we've done this summer. We've made absolutely outstanding changes. They were pretty much based. They would have some crossover here at the training ground, but they were pretty much based because it was an evening. They trained under the floodlights at Oxford City. They played their games there. There wasn't too much crossover here at the training ground, which at times can maybe not feel as inclusive as we wanted it to be. So changing to the hybrid model now, where they're in the afternoons, 3 afternoons, their games on the Sunday are still at Oxford City. We want to increase the amount of people that are going to the games as well. We've got players that are now on a hybrid contract, which is a huge step forward. The time that they're now having to balance between football and work to play for Oxford United, the amount of resource we've got going into it, with full-time staff going into it as well now, and they're getting the use of this training ground, which has had a huge upgrade in the summer. So from the women's side, there's a lot of steps being taken, again, over that sort of 18 months, 2 years. We don't want to stop here. However, we've got to make sure that we understand that we're doing it at the right speed. So are we going to go and be a professional women's side in the next 12 months? Probably not. Could we be a professional women's side in the next 2 years? There's a high possibility that we could.